You're right there guys, this is Dale of Lone Wombat Airsoft, and this is a video about making airsoft videos. All the things you'll need to know, what equipment you'll need, and a couple of little things I've picked up about YouTube along the way. So we'll start things off with a fairly simple question. Why do you want to make airsofting videos in the first place? And I'll phrase this another way, what is the driving force behind you wanting to make these videos? Because I'd suggest that if you can't identify what that driving force is, then you're not really going to be making videos for very long. It can be something simple. For me personally, my driving force is the fact that I enjoy making videos in of itself. I like the process of putting things together, getting the video out there and putting it out on YouTube. That's something I enjoy doing. So it's like a secondary hobby for me on top of the airsofting itself. So a driving force it doesn't have to be something big like I want to be the next Novrich or Desert Fox. It could just be, I want to show people why I think airsofting's cool, or I want to create content that my friends will enjoy. Both are perfectly valid reasons to get into actually making videos for yourself. You just need to identify why you want to get into it. And I think this is important because as you go through the process of making videos, you're going to get numerous setbacks along the way that are going to drain your enthusiasm for making these videos. And so you need that driving force to fall back on when times get a little bit tough. Setbacks can include things like, say you want to become popular on YouTube. Well, airsoft is a very niche sport. A lot of people don't really know what it is in the wider world. So you've already got a fairly limited audience base that are going to be interested in airsoft videos in the first place. And on top of that, we've got quite a few airsoft creators out there already making videos. I'm fairly sure whenever you go to a game day, you're going to see at least 2 or 3 GoPros at whatever site you're going to. So there's plenty of people out there. Now, I'm not saying it's a zero-sum game where all the audience is just cramped into one creator and that means there's none for the rest of them, because people can subscribe to multiple channels, so it's not like once someone has an audience member, that's it, they're theirs, no one else can share that. But what I am saying is that you're going to be fighting an uphill battle against other people that are more well established and more well known, that people tend to gravitate towards anyway. So you're going to have to work hard initially to get your feet off the ground and get your name out there. Another setback could be technical failures. A perfect example of this was yesterday when I went to Matlock Combat Games. We got into a really intense firefight. I was really enjoying myself at the time. I'm thinking, oh God, this is going to be amazing when I get home and look at the footage. Turns out my GoPro had just decided by itself that it wanted to record a time lapse instead of a video. So all the footage of this really incredible firefight was sped up to 20 times and there was no audio on it. So I'm thinking, oh no, this is useless now. I can't use this. And things like that do happen. Maybe you forgot to charge your batteries in your camera, like maybe the SD card's full and you forgot to clear it. Technical difficulties do happen on the days and they can just completely mess up the whole process of it. So again, another quite annoying setback that does happen fairly frequently. On top of that, bad luck is another potential setback. There have been times where I've gone to like an airsofting site ready to go, yeah, this is a brand new place, I want to show it off, really want to get some good content out of this. And I just don't do well on the day. Like the other players are better than me, or I'm having a particularly bad day, and then you get home, you go through the footage and you just think, oh, this is really quite boring to watch, nothing's really going on. Bad luck is a factor. Like, it's not really something you have that much control of compared to something like people that do gaming videos, or just a straight up review where you're more in control of the video content that you produce. When you're out there in the airsoft field recording action videos, the other players out there, they're not going to be very compliant to make it look like you're the best and you're doing all these cool things on the field, because they want to win as well. So you can't control that factor of it, and when it's a case like that, you can't control whether the video is good or not, because there's all the other people that are out there trying to do well as well. Another factor that could be a potential setback for people is cost, and it's a fairly big one, to be fair, because camera gear goes for hundreds of pounds if you want decent stuff, and it's on top of the cost you're already spending to go airsofting in the first place, to buy all the kit for it, and now you've got extra camera gear on top of that as well. It doesn't come cheap, and that can definitely put people off it. Time is another potential setback. What a lot of people don't realise, and I've spoken to many players that bought a GoPro, wanted to get going with the airsoft videos, and then it's when they get back home and they realise how much time is needed to edit those videos together to make them good. To prove this point, I actually timed how long it took me to produce my last video, and the grand total came to 3 hours. Just editing, just sat in front of a PC, splicing clips together, putting the images in, making sure the sound all lined up and came out good. That's not including the 2 hours I spent recording that video, that's not including the 1 hour I spent researching and typing up a script for it. it's very time consuming to make good content, and that's not something that a lot of people appreciate, especially when they just think, right, I can bolt a GoPro on my head, done, I'm making good videos. There's a fair bit of editing time on the side of that. So all these are potential barriers that you're going to have to overcome if you're wanting to make videos. And I'm not saying that they're unable to get past them. They are quite easy to move past. You just need to identify why you want to make these videos, what your driving force is. Once you can do that, then these are just setbacks. You can get past them, you can continue making it, and you can keep your enthusiasm for making videos up. So let's talk about some of the equipment that you're going to need in order to start making airsofting videos in the first place. Now, I'm going to assume that you already have enough airsofting kit to go airsofting on a regular basis, so we're going to ignore things like gun and clothes and all that, and we're just going to focus on the recording equipment that you'll need. I'll say that the two things that are absolutely essential are a head camera and a PC with some kind of editing software on it. Most Windows and Mac computers these days come with software pre-installed on them. Windows Movie Maker was garbage when I was using that back in the day. It was crashing all the time and I absolutely hated it. The Mac I have at the moment has iMovie on it, which is actually much better for trimming clips and detaching audio, so I just hear the audio from the GoPro, not the lesser audio from my scope cam. So it's good for little things like that, but it's limited in bizarre ways. Like if you just want to put text on the screen, you've only got some preset options and it's really hard to play about with those. So it's slick but very limited. And there's definitely better video editing software packages out there, so that could be worth something just to look into getting at some point. But those are the two essential things: editing software, camera, and what I would argue is very, very desired but not essential is a secondary camera. So not necessarily a scope camera, just a secondary camera to provide a different perspective. So we'll start with the head camera. This is absolute 101 go-to. This is what you need in order to make them. Because your head camera is what your viewers are going to spend the vast majority of their time looking out of, it needs to capture as much of the battlefield as possible at any one time. Why a head camera and not a chest-mounted one? A head camera is always going to provide the perspective that you are looking at. So say your body language is pointing this way, but you spot a target over there, your camera is still going to see what you're seeing. If you had a chest-mounted one, it's fixed position here. It's always pointing forward like that. So if you're looking over to your right at a target, the camera's still looking forward. It can't see what you're seeing, so it's missing the action that's going on. Another drawback of the chest-mounted is if you've got a rifle shouldered, it's going to be blocked by your hand, by the gun. So I avoid chest-mounted ones. What I use for the head mount is like this elastic headband mount the GoPro provides. I've seen people mount them to helmets as well. These is also a good option. But definitely make sure it's mounted to your head as opposed to your chest or anywhere else. Another option I played about with for a primary camera is the third-person perspective one. Now this is a GoPro Karma gimbal, and what it does is it mounts the camera in there, and regardless of where the stick is going, it always provides a fixed, stable viewpoint for the camera itself. And whilst this is good for just walking around filming other people like so, what I actually did with it is I cable tied it to my tack vest to mount it over the back of my shoulder like so, so it's seeing an over-the-shoulder perspective, and it was really quite smooth and stable even when I'm jogging around, and it provides excellent establishing shots and like a really smooth, really nice footage. But a limitation of that is once you actually get in a firefight and you're taking cover behind a tree, for example, tree's here, camera's here, it can't see what's going on because the cover's blocking the way. So a little bit limited in that. It's good for the occasional shot, but I wouldn't rely on this to provide just your primary viewpoint. So in terms of the kind of cameras you want, obviously the default is the trusty GoPro. In order to determine what kind of camera you need to understand what video performance people expect these days. Now, the technical spec that people expect at the moment is 1080p HD footage recorded at 60 frames a second. That's what I would say is the acceptable baseline at the time of recording this. Obviously, as the years goes on, this is going to go up and up and up, so that's why it might be worthwhile investing in a more expensive camera, knowing that you're tech-proof for the next future years. But as I say, 1080p 60 frames a second is what you want to be aiming for. Now, the high-end GoPros can do 4K in 60 frames, which, great. If you can get higher quality footage, then by all means go for it, but it's not needed. Some of the lower line or second-hand GoPros even will record 1080 60, and you can get those for much cheaper than just buying a absolute brand new top-of-the-line one, so something to look into perhaps. You've also got a lot of rip-off GoPros that can do 4K footage for a much cheaper price. And they'll be compatible with the GoPro mounted accessories as well, so it could be worth looking into some of those as well. What I'd say as well though is if your camera has like an integrated case, so say it's like a Contour Roam camera, or the new GoPros as well say that you don't need a case with it anymore because it's waterproof, it's shock resistant. No, still get an exterior case with it, because those are designed to survive being dropped onto a rock or something just from that sort of height, but they're not designed to withstand being struck with a BB. I have lost several cameras and cases over the years to mainly CQB environments, but still camera gear can be shot out by BBs, which is why I always say get a protected case for it, because it's much cheaper to replace the case if it breaks than it is to replace the camera. And if the actual lens inside the camera gets scratched, that's it, that's there for good. And that was the main reason why I actually upgraded from my old GoPro to my current one, because there was a little scratch on the lens and it provided a bit of smudged footage about here-ish in the videos I was recording that was always getting in the way. So definitely get an exterior case. Don't trust integrated cases to survive being hit with a BB. They won't. So that's your primary camera. Gone over the editing footage already. We'll go to the secondary camera. Now, as I say, non-essential. If you're spending a lot of time in CQB environments, so across the room shooting, then just a single GoPro will do you fine with that. But what the secondary camera does is it provides a zoomed in perspective if you're using it as a scope camera, which is very good to cut between. You can use it to jump time in like the firefight itself. So say you've got about 30 seconds downtime, you can just cut to your second camera, cut out the dead time, cut back to your primary camera, and the viewer's perspective has lost nothing. Time's progressing at a continuous logical pace, but you've managed to cut some of the dead time out of your video. Obviously I use my secondary camera as the scope camera, so it's mounted to the scope of my rifle, mounted to the gun. It is always looking at where I'm shooting. So even if my GoPro is blocked by, like, say I'm in a building and it's blocked by the top of the window, the gun cam's pointing out of that window, it can still see what I'm shooting at. It provides a zoomed in perspective so you can actually see the target I'm shooting at. It provides the flight path of the BBs. Looks really quite cool to look down to. Definitely need the zoomed in one for this, because when you're using just a standard GoPro and you're in an outdoor environment, if your target is more than 20 meters away, it's going to be really hard for that GoPro to see them, and your viewer base isn't going to see them either. So when they're watching your video, for all they know, that you could just be shooting into an empty forest if they can't see the target that you're aiming at. This is why scope cams are very, very desired in my opinion. Your secondary camera doesn't have to be a scope camera though. Another option could be the face cam. So you get a camera, you mount it on the gun, but point it back at you. And I don't use these because I personally think it's a bit of a waste of money, because the action's out there. And if your camera's pointing at you, it's not looking at the action, which is why I can't really justify a face camera, and I don't particularly like them. But it can still provide that time-saving function. So say, for example, you're in a CQB environment, you kick in the door, you clear a couple of rooms, still no targets, then you get to the fourth room and you start shooting a guy. In between you kicking the door and you aiming the guy, there's probably about 30-40 seconds of footage where nothing's going on. So if you have the primary perspective, you kick in the door, from that point you cut to the face camera, just 5 seconds of you clearing the rooms, then you can cut back to the primary camera at the point at which you engage the guy. You've then cut the dead time out of your video. It's more action orientated and the time flow has progressed at a logical pace, so the viewers, it's not jarring for them to watch it. So that's why a secondary camera like a face camera can be quite useful. As I say, I don't personally use them, but the purpose of them does exist. So, summarise again. 3 things you need. A head camera, doesn't have to be a GoPro, just shop around for the various options, but it must be 1080p 60 frames. A PC with some kind of editing software on it, and I'd highly recommend a secondary camera, ideally a scope camera, but you can probably get away with a face camera. So far we've gone over what you need in order to make a video in the first place, but we've not really touched on what you need in order to make it good. Now, all of this is done in the editing room once you've actually got back from the airsofting day. You can have the best time out in the field, but if you don't edit a video together correctly, then it's not going to be very entertaining to watch back. So there are 3 things that you really need to consider when doing this. First off is to make it as short and compact as possible, to keep it filled with action the entire way through, and to try and consider what is entertaining to your audience as opposed to what entertains you. So with the first one, with keeping it compact, how you do this is you eliminate as much dead time as possible in your video. What I'd consider dead time is when nothing's really happening. Say for example, you are in a firefight with someone, you both know you're there, but you're not currently shooting at each other. You're just glancing around, trying to get the good shot, getting your bearings. If you're doing nothing for about 30 seconds at a time, you can probably lose that from your video. It's just not interesting for other people to watch. So you'll find I do this quite often with fade-in cuts between my videos. So whilst the firefight itself might have taken 3 minutes to complete, you can cut between it and you can shorten the times down between you firing and actually engaging your target and being shot at. You can probably reduce a 2-3 minute firefight to about 20-30 seconds max. It's all about eliminating the time when nothing is going on. Now, this actually plays into trying to make your video action-filled as well. Now, what I mean by making it action-filled is you don't have to just constantly show footage of you shooting people, shooting people, shooting people. Action can be anything as long as something is going on that is relevant to the video and is interesting to watch. So, for example, kicking a door in, prepping a reload, getting a grenade ready, sparking it, throwing it. Even just talking tactics with your teammates could be counted as action. It's not just shooting at the enemy players, but you have to be doing something. And it has to be relevant to the viewer as well. For example, talking tactics with your team about how you're going to breach this room, who needs to do what, that is action. Talking to your team about what you're going to have for lunch and what your plans for the rest of the weekend are when you go home, not action. Prepping a reload is part of the action when you drop the mag out, but you might not need to necessarily show the whole reloading process of you fumbling with your pouches, finding the mag you dropped on the ground, stuffing that back into your pocket, then completing the reload and good to go. You can cut out the middle bit with that. Start the reload, end the reload, cut the dead bit in the middle. So by making it compact, you're going to keep your viewers' attention for as long as possible. What I tend to find is that in terms of dead time, the amount that people can stand is about 30 seconds of dead time before they start to suspect that maybe nothing's going to happen, and about 2 minutes before they click off it entirely and just don't watch the rest of your video. You could be building up to a huge, really exciting climax at the end of your video, but if the 4 or 5 minutes before that video are really quite boring and nothing's going on, your viewers aren't going to last until that end bit. Try and keep it entertaining the entire way through. Now, with the third point of making it relevant to all your viewers, the scale I like to use is if I've completed a video, I sit back, I watch it before I upload it, and I think to myself, this was an amazing video, this is the best thing I've ever done. Chances are a person who wasn't there and is a complete stranger to you who's watching that video will probably think, yeah, it's all right, it's pretty good. Essentially, a person who wasn't involved in the situation you were in is going to think less of it because they weren't there, they didn't experience it. You need to show them why it was good, but this is tainted by you being there and knowing it was good. You need in order to show that to the viewer. So if you make a video and you get to the end of it and you think, it's all right, it's not great, it's all right. A person who wasn't there, wasn't involved in it, is going to get bored by it. So essentially, take a step down of what you think the video is probably what your audience is going to think about it as well. So try and keep that in mind as you're going through in order to make it entertaining and try to make it relevant to a stranger watching the video. Say, for example, you're chatting around with your mates, you're just messing around for like a minute or so. You think it's really funny because it's got a load of in-jokes with your little clique of friends, and you think it's great to watch back. It would be good for your friends. For a complete stranger to watch that, they're not going to get the in-jokes. They're not there to watch a couple of people messing around. They're there to watch airsofting action. That's what was promised to them in the video, and you need to deliver in order to make that happen. Okay then, so you've finished your airsoft video, you are happy that you've done all that you can to make it interesting and watchable, and now you just need to get it out there. So at the time of recording, YouTube is the most popular video sharing platform at the moment. It's got the biggest audience base. This is probably what you should go for first time. You should know, after all, this is what you're watching this video on. Whilst secretly I am kind of hoping that a competitor to YouTube will rise up at some point so that it will improve standards for both the people watching and the people making content on it, YouTube is currently the one to go for. So create your channel name and get your video uploaded. When you're creating a channel name, try to make it vaguely relevant to Airsoft so that people would, when they're searching for stuff, could stumble across it and know instantly what you're doing with it. A little play on words, maybe, something interesting. Just make sure someone hasn't already used that name already, because a lot of them have gone at this point. And try to make it relevant, like calling yourself Balls Deep 69 or something probably isn't a good shout. When you're uploading your videos, always keep it set to private whilst it's uploading. What this means is that once it's finished uploading, it's not just put out there instantly. You only get one chance to properly launch a video. So you want to make sure that you're all set and ready to go before you actually set it to public and get it out there. So I always leave mine set to private whilst uploading, so I can add the window dressing to the bits around the video. Window dressing is stuff like your title, your thumbnail, clickable links in the outro, taglines, that sort of thing. So when you're putting in a good title, whilst putting things like the date it was filmed at and the location it was filmed at is not inaccurate, it's not really going to help with searches. So you're going to have to try and make a title that is both relevant and searchable. So putting things like just Airsoft or the type of gun you're using or what happens in the video, all are good options for creating a decent title. And whilst I'll say this is the same for titles and thumbnails, try not to make it overly clickbaity. Like if you're a new channel just getting off the ground, the few people are going to find your work, they're going to get pissed off and leave and never come back very quickly if it's painfully obvious that the title or the thumbnail was too clickbaity or misleading. So try to avoid that. On the subject of the thumbnail itself, try to make it relevant to the video whilst also looking interesting. What I like to do is I take a screenshot of part of the video itself, so you see the airsoft field, you see the gun I'm using, it's looking actiony, it's also true because it happens in the video itself. So that could potentially be a good option for thumbnails. Also putting in images that are relevant to it. So say for example with this video, because we're talking about making airsoft videos on YouTube, like the YouTube logo, a GoPro, airsofting in general, just stuff related to that are all good things that you can put into the thumbnail as well. Intros and outros. Now, with an intro, try to keep it as short and to the point as possible. Like, people tend to get really pissed off if there's like a 30-second intro that's blatantly there just to pad time in the video, and it's really obnoxious, and it's just playing music that chances are people haven't heard and don't really like, because music taste is very subjective. So just try and keep it short to the point. With an outro, I'd try to save about 20 seconds at the end of your video just to allow a clickable link in it so that you can offer a suggestion to your viewer for another video that you've already made if they'd like to watch that. This is done in the YouTube video editor. Once you've uploaded the video to it, you can put in an interactable link on there. It'll show you the thumbnail of a previous video you've done. People can click on that, and that allows people to just cycle through your videos if they want to watch more of your content. So that could be very worthwhile to put in. Taglines as well are these searchable things that you can put in your video manager, and they're just keywords that are relevant to what's going on. So airsoft, the brand of gun you're using, where you were, just even things like GoPro or just stuff that you're using that is relevant to what's going on. First person, for example. If that's something that people are searching for, it will pop up in the tagline, and when they're searching for it, the YouTube algorithm will flag up your video saying, yeah, this might be relevant for them. They might want to watch this. So adding in a lot of taglines in there are good to go for. Now, when it comes to music, adding a music track to your video can help add the atmosphere to it. It can make it more interesting, more engaging for someone watching it. Just be careful with what you're using. If it's like a well-known artist, chances are their music has been added to YouTube's database that automatically scans every video that's uploaded, and if there's a match, it would give the copyright holder, the person who created that music, full control over where your video can be watched, whether it's banned on mobile devices, whether it's blocked in certain countries. They could block it entirely so nobody can watch it. All of these things are possible, so that's why I'd always try to avoid really well-known and licensed music. YouTube does have its own database of unlicensed music that anybody can use, so it might be worth scrolling through there just to find something that sounds good. You can maybe add that to your video. But just be careful with the kind of music that you are using. Things like my Ground Zero montage videos tends to use a lot of music in there, and a couple of little things get flagged up on there. Usually most artists, if they're decent, will just place their own ads on your video, so you can't make money off it, but they can. But there have been occasions where the certain music track you used is blocked in certain countries, or you can't view it on mobile, so just be careful with what you're using. Now, on the subject of making money on videos, if you got into making airsoft videos wanting to get so many subscribers that you can afford a living off it, might want to temper those ideas a little bit. YouTube has recently added in a system where you can only start placing adverts on your video if you have both 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours worth of watch time. You need both of these before you can put adverts on your video. So if you can't attain that, you can't get any adverts at all. Also, on top of that, the way YouTube AdSense works, which is what pays the people who put the adverts on the video, is there's a certain threshold that they need to meet before they'll release any funds to the creator. As this stands, this threshold's about 60 quid's worth of advertising revenue. And as it stands currently, my channel's sitting at about 150,000 views total. And with those 150,000 total views, I have not made this threshold once. Based on my estimates, I think you'll need to make about 200,000 views before you'll actually meet this advertisement threshold and get any money off it. So unless you think you can get 200,000 views per day, you might want to temper those ideas of hoping to create a living off of YouTube. Granted, it's entirely possible, people have done it, but it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of luck, and a lot of time and effort before you can actually reach that stage. So I'd really suggest, if you're going to get into this video making, just do it because it's fun. The money's a great thing if you can get it, but don't expect to. And that about covers everything you need to know in order to start making airsofting content on YouTube. Yes, it's not for everyone. Some people just don't want to, some people don't want to put in the time for editing, but there is always room for more creators on here. So if you think you're willing to put the time, the effort, the money into it, then by all means, there's always room for more creators on here. Maybe you think that you can do something completely new that nobody's done before, or maybe you look at all the stuff that's out there at the moment and you know you can do better than that, or maybe you just want to do it because it's fun. All are valid reasons to get into making airsofting content. And if you decide to do it, then I absolutely wish you the best of luck. Now, I hope you've enjoyed my video based on making content on YouTube. If you've got any questions you'd like to ask me or feedback you'd like to give, maybe you just want to share your own experiences of creating videos for this site, then leave your comments down below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And until next time, this has been Dale of Lone Wombat Airsoft.